Rudo was just another poor bastard living in the slums, regularly breaking into the rich folks' junkyards to swipe anything remotely useful. But when he's falsely accused of murdering his foster father and chucked into the pit, where all the world's garbage gets dumped, he finds himself battling monstrous piles of trash to claw his way back up and get some sweet revenge. Then we see the world he lives in is one hell of a divided place. On one side, there's the pristine, picture-perfect city where the rich assholes lounge around living their best damn lives. On the other, there's the filthy slums, home to folks like Rudo. The one thing these two places share is the pit, a festering dump for garbage and criminals alike. The rich toss away barely damaged items without batting an eye, like the snobby mother who casually instructs her daughter to check a puppy toy she literally just bought because it got a tiny scratch. She coldly tells the kid they'll just buy a new one because God forbid something looks slightly imperfect. The daughter agrees and her mom heartlessly tosses the toy puppy into a garbage chute, sending it straight down to a truck parked in an underground tunnel, headed to the massive trash heap. Little do they know, young Rudo is already lurking around down there, eyeballing whatever goodies these spoiled brats have tossed out. Sneaking into the trash collection area, Rudo slips into one of the storage rooms. But his luck sucks as usual. A nosy-ass guard hears a suspicious noise and immediately bursts in to catch him digging through the trash. Pointing his gun at Rudo, the guard starts shouting, calling him a filthy degenerate who's ruining the city's beauty by hoarding garbage. Rudo doesn't even flinch, having heard worse insults every freaking Sunday. The guard sounds the alarm and reinforcements arrive in no time. Fed up, Rudo hurls bags of garbage at them, and these neat freight guards completely lose their minds at the sight of some raw eggs staining their precious uniforms, freezing up uselessly as Rudo scrambles up the vent and escapes. Rudo pops out of the vent close to the exit, but of course, the gate slams shut right in his face and more guards flood in, guns blazing. But Rudo effortlessly dodges their bullets like a Parker expert and charges straight toward the exit, and he stays perfectly safe because the guards clearly sucks at shooting. Just as he's about to leap over the wall, one lucky shot grazes his arm, pissing him off even more, but he's already out of sight before they can catch him. As the dumb guards waste their time searching for him, Rudo climbs out of a sewer hole, cursing under his breath about the sheer stupidity of guarding literal garbage that nobody else even wants. The following morning, word about the damned garbage thief spreads like wildfire through the city, and of course, all the rich assholes instantly blame it on the slum folks. On the other side of the wall, the slum dwellers know exactly who's responsible because this ain't Rudo's first time dumpster diving. Hell, half of them secretly hope he finally gets caught just so he'll stop dragging their reputation deeper into the shitter. Rudo couldn't care less about their opinions though as he sets up shop, proudly displaying all the fixed-up junk he scavenged. Just then, his friend Chua storms over, pissed off, demanding to know why the hell he risks his neck for a bunch of city people's garbage. He shrugs her off, telling her those rich bastards toss away perfectly good stuff like it's nothing, so he feels sorry for the poor things and figures if he can make some cash off them, that's just a bonus. Chua seems to get it, but right then, three little asshats show up, dramatically pinching their noses and complaining loudly that something reeks worse than a sewer around here. They warn Chua to stay clear of Rudo or else she'll smell just as bad. They roast Rudo's thick black gloves, saying he probably hasn't washed the nasty things since the days of the dinosaurs, and joke that just one touch from those disgusting mitts would give someone a lifetime of rashes. One kid takes it further, kicking over the lantern Rudo had just fixed, sneering that no one in their right mind would buy that piece of junk. Then the little brat mocks Rudo's hands themselves, calling them even creepier than his crusty gloves and saying that's exactly why he keeps them covered. Rudo silently endures the roast session, but the second one of them crosses the line by calling him a murderer's son. His patience snaps, and his eyes flare with sudden rage. Yet they keep running their mouths, saying the slums were built to cage criminals and all the residents here are just their messed-up descendants. That's why most slum dwellers try so hard to keep their reputation clean, and Rudo's foster father tarnished that reputation by committing murder. At that point, Rudo unleashes a death glare so intense the kids damn near shit themselves, scrambling away while shouting insults from a safe distance, claiming Rudo will end up just like his father. Rudo just quietly gets back to fixing the lantern, and Chua steps closer, softly reassuring him that she knows deep down he's a good guy and nothing like his father. Rudo immediately gets awkward and red-faced at the compliment, but before he even stutter out a thank you, Chua's eyes catch sight of the puppy toy he'd grabbed from the dump last night. Turns out he'd picked it specifically as a gift for her, hoping to finally level up his pathetic-ass charisma stat. But just as he's about to hand it over, Chua's mom storms in, interrupting his moment and dragging Chaiwa away before he can complete his cute mission. After that awkward-ass moment, Rudo heads back home only to find his adoptive dad Ragto chilling there waiting for him. Ragto immediately starts clowning him, perfectly mimicking Rudo's nervous fumbling when he tried handing Chua the puppy. Rudo goes bright red, embarrassed as shit because he had no clue Ragto was watching the entire disaster unfold. Ragto laughs it off and says they'll discuss his pathetic love life later, but first he needs to talk about Rudo's latest junkyard adventure. Ragto gently reminds him there's no need to push himself so much, as they're not completely broke. He figures Rudo probably feels indebted because he adopted him after Rudo's biological dad got thrown into that hellhole for murder. Rudo quickly insists that's not how it is. He genuinely thinks of Ragto as family and is just doing his part. With a knowing smile, Ragto advises him to be equally honest with Chua, causing Rudo to fluster so badly that he accidentally reopens his wound from the gunshot last night. So Ragto instantly tends to him, carefully applying first aid and changing the bandages on his hands as well. Looking at his scared-up hands, Rudo remembers they've been screwed up for as long as he can recall. Everyone always judged him for it, and sometimes they'd randomly hurt like hell for no damn reason until Ragto hooked him up with those black gloves, which somehow magically eased the pain. After finishing up the bandaging, Ragto bluntly tells him he better hurry and confess to Chua before some other asshole steals her away. As they bicker and joke around, some creepy bastard wearing a mask listens silently from the shadows outside, spying on their entire conversation. The following morning, Rudo finally gets off his ass, builds up the nerve to confess, grabs the puppy toy, and heads straight to Chua's place. But of course, shit never goes smoothly, because along the way he stumbles onto a scene that's sadly not uncommon around these parts. At the slum's edge is the infamous pit, the dumping ground for garbage and hardcore criminals. Today, they're throwing another poor bastard down into that godforsaken hole. Rudo watches, unable to look away, wondering just what the hell actually happens to people who get tossed in there. Out of nowhere, Chua pops up right beside him, commenting casually about how messed up the scene is, nearly making Rudo jump out of his skin because he wasn't mentally prepared to see her yet. Completely oblivious to his panic, she casually continues chatting about the executions and other messed up shit before suddenly turning serious, telling him she doesn't want to see his dumb ass thrown down there. She admits there might be valuable stuff in that garbage pit, but it ain't worth risking his life over. Rudo quietly mutters that Ragto said the same exact thing, and with a gentle look, she tells him that's because Ragto also genuinely cares about him. It takes Rudo's potato-powered brain a solid moment to realize that when Chua said Ragto loves him too, she was low-key confessing that she also likes him. Chua quickly turns bright red, clearly embarrassed as hell by how her words sounded, but it's already too late. Rudo is gone, mentally checked out, short-circuited completely. He collapses dramatically to the ground, covering his face like an idiot before finally gathering the courage to hand over the puppy toy, nervously mumbling that even though it came from the trash, the puppy would definitely be happier with her. To his absolute shock, Chua happily accepts the gift, promising to cherish it. Rudo practically loses his shit right then and there, happier than he's ever been in his miserable life. He literally starts jumping and dancing like a complete dork all the way home, eager as hell to brag about it to Ragto immediately. Along the way, he bumps into a bunch of guards who don't even bother acknowledging him, which is weird, but whatever. He's too giddy to give a damn why they're roaming around the slums today. He then bursts through the front door, excitedly babbling to Ragto about everything that just happened. But his words catch in his throat when he sees Ragto collapse on the floor, pinned beneath some creepy-ass masked bastard. The masked dude calmly turns to look straight at Rudo, then coldly plunges his knife even deeper into Ragto's body. Rage completely overtakes Rudo. He charges at the murderer, but before he can even swing a punch, he gets clocked so damn hard he doesn't even feel himself hit the ground. By the time Rudo regains his senses, the masked asshole has already finished the job. The killer casually picks a book off the floor and strolls out, barely giving Rudo a second glance. Rudo tries crawling after him, desperate for vengeance, but then a weak voice stops him in his tracks. Ragto is somehow still hanging on, barely breathing, and with his last ounce of strength, he begs Rudo to run. Panicked, Rudo rushes back to Ragto's side, promising he'll get help, but Ragto just weakly shakes his head, telling him to get the hell out and change this shit show of a world into something better. Then Ragto's body goes limp and Rudo's brain freezes, unable to even comprehend the nightmare he just witnessed. At that exact moment, the soldiers storm into the house, immediately zapping Rudo with their stun weapons and pinning him to the ground, accusing him of murder. Rudo frantically insists he's innocent, begging them to chase after the real killer who literally just walked out, but the guards don't give a shit, claiming they caught him red-handed and his explanations don't matter. Rudo continues pleading his innocence, but they ignore his desperate pleas and they shut him up the good old-fashioned way by knocking him the hell out with a solid punch to the head. Before long, Rudo's hauled onto the scaffold to pay for a crime he didn't commit. Practically everyone from the slums has gathered for the twisted entertainment, along with some smug-ass VIP assholes from the wealthy districts. The judge looks down at him with disgust, spouting some pretentious bullshit about murder being among the most terrible sins one can commit. He coldly states that even though Rudo's victim was just some slum dweller, the sentence won't be softened. Death by tossing him into the damn pit. The crowd goes wild with approval, cheering like they're watching a freaking football game. Rudo still can't wrap his head around this nightmare and desperately searches for even one face that believes his innocence. His eyes lock on the Chua standing in the crowd. He shouts at her, desperately pleading that he didn't kill Ragto, begging her to find the real bastard responsible. But Chua coldly shuts him down, saying she trusted him once, but he betrayed that trust. She bitterly calls him nothing but a son of a murderer after all, tossing the puppy toy aside as she turns her back on him. Her betrayal cuts deeper than any of the other shit he's been through, and something inside him snaps. Rudo loses his cool completely, furiously yelling back at the bastards, calling him trash. He screams that they're the real garbage here, brainless sacks of meat without the guts or the will to see the truth. He vows he'll drag every last one of them straight to hell, but right then he notices the creepy masked murderer standing casually in the crowd, enjoying the show. But before he can shout out the truth, though they shove him off the edge. The fall feels endless and Rudo eventually blacks out, thinking he's done for good. But luck's weirdly on his side today because he lands in the massive heap of garbage at the pit's bottom, unharmed except for his shattered pride. As he slowly regains consciousness, he wonders how in the unholy hell he's still breathing. Then the smell hits in full force and even a seasoned trash connoisseur like himself gags uncontrollably, almost passing out again from the stench alone. When his eyes finally adjust, he takes in the sheer, endless ocean of filth stretching out in front of him, seeing shit he's never seen before mixed in with familiar junk. He's still wondering what kind of messed up place he's landed in when suddenly an enormous shadow looms over him, blotting out the little light available. Rudo turns around and holy shit, standing before him is a monstrous creature made entirely out of trash, glaring down at him with massive, disgusting fangs ready to rip him apart. Rudo then breaks into a desperate sprint as more monsters burst from the shadows. The three creatures instantly surround him, blocking every possible escape route. In a moment of sheer terror, Rudo finally realizes they're not normal beasts, they're grotesque giants assembled from piles of freaking garbage. He has no clue how something this insane could even exist or how the hell he's going to survive it. His only option is trusting his instincts and dodging like crazy while he desperately searches for a way out. He suddenly trips over something, the human skull, and horror fills him as he imagines ending up exactly like that lifeless skeleton. He refuses to accept it, yet deep down he's running out of hope. Rage and despair hit him as he curses those bastards who threw him here despite his innocence, asking himself bitterly how things could have possibly gotten this bad. The garbage shifts beneath his feet, causing the ground to give way, sending him plummeting downward into the darkness. He crashes hard, pain shooting through every inch of his battered body, barely able to move. He can't catch his breath, the filthy air slicing through his lungs like glass with each gasp. He knows he's out of time, so he desperately scans around for someplace safe, but sees nothing except endless hills of trash. The cruel reality sinks in. This nightmare might really be how it all ends. He coughs violently, blood spilling from his mouth, proof that his body is beginning to shut down even though his mind refuses to surrender. The creatures move closer, ready to finish him off. Exhausted, beaten, and cornered, Rudo's thoughts drift to his foster father Recto, a good man who didn't deserve to die. Anger and grief fill him again. He can't quit, not now, not before making Recto's killer pay. Right then, something deep inside him wakes up, an unfamiliar but powerful force urging him to stand and fight. Using every bit of strength left, he grabs a metal pipe lying nearby and forces himself to his feet. There's no way he's going down quietly, not until he's found the bastard who framed him, not until he's avenged Recto. With all his fury channeled into one last swing, Rudo smashes the monster back, knocking it violently off balance. Elsewhere in the vast sea of garbage, a peculiar guy holding an umbrella casually observes Rudo's desperate fight through a pair of binoculars, but we'll find out who this dude is soon enough. Back in the heat of battle, Rudo goes full wild mode, swinging furiously, with no real plan except pure chaos. The monster shoves him back, landing a solid hit, but Rudo's adrenaline numbs any pain, and he immediately retaliates by launching his steel pipe straight into the beast's face. Just as he catches his breath, another monster erupts from the trash beneath him, knocking Rudo backward. Now the pain finally hits, blood drips from his mouth, but he's too amped up to stop. He charges forward again, grabbing a sharp piece of metal roofing and violently splits one monster in half. It's a crazy achievement, but Rudo's body is at its absolute limit, and he can't avoid the next beast's attack. But the creature pounds the ground with such force that it catapults Rudo into the air, landing right at the feet of that mysterious guy watching earlier. His stranger has a mask on to handle the poisonous air, and he carries that stupid umbrella even though it's not raining. Without a word, he casually kicks Rudo for literally no reason at all, then finally slaps a breathing mask onto his face, letting him catch some air. Struggling to comprehend what's going on, Rudo immediately begins questioning the man about his identity, their location, and the nature of this bizarre place. But the guy coldly refuses to answer, just telling him to shut up. When Rudo keeps shouting louder like an absolute idiot, demanding more answers, the mysterious man finally snaps and yells back, telling him that this place isn't underground, it's actually above ground. It's just where the whole damn city dumps its endless trash. The guy explains he was only staying quiet to avoid attracting more monsters. But thanks to their loud yelling match, those trash beasts, as he calls them, start emerging again. The stranger informs Rudo that normal weapons won't do shit against these monsters, but luckily for him, this man's umbrella is not some ordinary umbrella. Suddenly, the umbrella morphs into an even crazier version of itself. Calmly and coolly, the guy points it at the nearest monster, and with a powerful drill-like attack, vaporizes the beast into tiny bits. Several other trash monsters charge at them, but the guy wipes them all out with a single, ridiculous sweep of his umbrella, leaving Rudo speechless. For a final touch, he unleashes his most powerful attack, dramatically calling out Unbreaker Octashredder, and slices all the remaining monsters cleanly into shreds. With the monsters gone, the strange guy walks back over to Rudo. Once again, Rudo asks who exactly he is, and this time the guy finally removes his mask, introduces himself as Engine, and casually mentions he's a cleaner around here. But clearly, cleaner has a deeper meaning, suggesting he might belong to some mysterious secret group called the Cleaners. The second Engine takes off the mask, the unbearable stench hits him hard, making him choke. He immediately regrets that dumb decision, complains loudly about the horrific air quality, and quickly puts the mask back on. At this moment, Rudo realizes Engine is probably just some random dude like himself, and now that he's gotten at least a few answers, his exhausted body finally lets him pass out again. In his unconscious state, memories flood his mind, taking him back to a time when he was still with Recto. One day, he'd come home soaked and miserable after being bullied by some kids. When Recto asked him what happened, Rudo explained that he told those brats that objects have souls if you treat them well, so they mocked him and pushed him around. Recto asked if he fought back, and when Rudo said no, Recto praised him for it. Rudo then reminded Recto that he himself once said if an object is treated carefully and respectfully for a long time, eventually a soul will inhabit it. Recto walked closer, asking if Rudo truly believed that legend. He admitted that even he, who had shared this belief, didn't know if it was actually true because it was merely a legend passed down with no concrete proof. Still, Recto said he'd rather believe it anyway, that objects, when treated well, could indeed be inhabited by a soul. He gently dried Rudo off, remarking that even the towel could have a soul, or else how could it be so effective at cleaning a person's body? And Recto said that even the gloves Rudo wore could someday gain their own soul and help him out. They laughed together, joking that maybe even toilets could have souls if people treated them kindly enough. But that warm memory is short-lived as Rudo is dragged back into reality, a reality that's even crueler than he'd expected. But at least he's still alive after what just happened. He feels himself chained up and getting roughly dragged across the filthy ground. When he glances up, he realizes the person dragging him along is Engine, the same oddball from before. Engine clearly doesn't give a damn about Rudo's comfort, continuing to drag him mercilessly through the dirt. Rudo wonders if maybe it's finally time to just accept his miserable fate. But if he gives up now, that means giving up on revenge against all the people who wronged him, and he's not ready to let them off the hook just yet. Rudo desperately screams at Engine, demanding to be taken back to the surface. Engine looks at him like he's lost his damn mind, mocking him for thinking there's even a surface left to return to. Engine bluntly explains that what Rudo thinks is the surface isn't even there anymore. The world he came from is a sphere, a moving structure that's already drifted far away from where Rudo was tossed out, making any return impossible. But Rudo isn't listening to Engine's explanations. He stubbornly insists he'll scream nonstop unless Engine helps him get back. He pleads desperately, begging Engine to at least tell him more about this messed up world and the sphere. Engine, however, couldn't care less, and he ignores Rudo's begging, continues dragging him in silence, and eventually drops him off near a line of grimy-looking trucks. And without another word, Engine walks away. Rudo, panicked and frustrated, yells at Engine again, but the strange guy doesn't even look back. Rudo slowly turns around and sees a group of strange figures approaching him. At first, he isn't even sure if they're human, just praying they're not another bunch of monsters about to rip him apart. Thankfully, they don't seem hostile, at least not yet. They approach curiously, surprised and amused by the fact that he's still alive. They ask if he's actually from the sphere, and when he confirms it, they excitedly remove their masks and hurry closer. They reveal it's been forever since they found someone from the sphere who wasn't already dead, so seeing one alive shocks them completely. One of them kindly steps forward, pretending to help Rudo by removing the chains. Relieved, Rudo instantly concludes these folks must be better than Engine. But unfortunately, he couldn't be more wrong because these people are far worse. They immediately rebind him tighter than before, roughly chaining him to one of the trucks. Laughing cruelly right in front of him, they talk openly about the huge profit they'll make from selling him. Not only do they plan to sell his body, but they gleefully discuss chopping him up, selling his head, eyes, ears, everything. They mockingly ask if he actually believed they cared, reminding him harshly that everyone here hates people from the sphere. In fact, spherites fetch such high prices precisely because of how much they're despised. You might be wondering why spherites are hated so damn much, and honestly, the reason isn't complicated. The folks up there on the sphere keep dumping all their garbage down here into the pit, poisoning the air, ruining the environment, and turning their trash into deadly monsters. Countless people have lost their loved ones to these creatures, so the hatred toward anyone from the sphere runs deep. One of the men picks up a handful of trash and shoves it toward Rudo, mocking him by saying he better eat it if he wants to stay alive, since they need him breathing to fetch a good price. And once they sell him, they'll gladly pay extra to watch him get tortured. The guy forces a chunk of garbage right into Rudo's mouth. In blind rage, Rudo snaps, biting down viciously and ripping the skin clean off two of the man's fingers before swallowing them whole. He then defiantly grabs another handful of trash and eats that too, telling them he doesn't give a damn about their whining over trash, monsters, the sphere, or anything else, because all he feels is pure fury. Suddenly, his body ignites in an intense surge of red energy. The chains binding him transform into a weapon he instinctively wields. At that moment, he remembers Recto's words that objects, if treated with care, can gain souls of their own and even save you someday. Engine watches silently from a distance, recognizing immediately what's happening. People who can harness souls from objects are known as givers. Realizing what the hell is going on, the injured man desperately orders the others to overwhelm Rudo quickly, claiming givers only have the strength from a single object, so they hurry up and drop the chain from his hand. But they're completely stunned when Rudo grabs a nearby tire and effortlessly draws strength from that as well. Now they realize this isn't just any ordinary giver. He can control multiple objects and he's insanely powerful. Rudo takes them all down one by one, and as he's about to finish off their leader, Engine steps in, grabbing Rudo's arm and suppressing the raging red energy instantly. Rudo regains his senses, confused and disoriented, but recognizes Engine immediately. Engine apologizes for ditching him earlier, saying he did it only to see exactly what Rudo was capable of. Now that he's confirmed Rudo's strength, Engine promises to explain everything about his abilities, the pit, and even the sphere, if Rudo agrees to join the cleaners because they need someone like him badly. It's a pretty tempting offer considering he desperately needs allies and protection in this messed up world, but Rudo remembers his past betrayals and quickly rejects the deal. Apparently, Engine doesn't understand the meaning of the word no, because the next thing Rudo knows, he's getting dragged to a clinic for treatment, while Engine excitedly calls his buddy, bragging that he's just recruited a once-in-a-lifetime genius into the cleaners. Rudo is floored by this revelation since he's pretty damn sure he never agreed to anything. He insists he needs to get back to the sphere immediately, but the creepy doctor, whose eyes are wider than a freaking owl, snaps at him to shut it. The doctor shouts at Rudo for wandering into the no man's land, where even the air itself is literally poisonous, calling him a walking disaster for managing to get kidnapped on top of it. He sternly instructs Rudo to thank Engine since he somehow rescued his sorry ass from two terrible fates in just one day. Rudo silently curses Engine under his breath, then moves on to mentally cursing the creepy doctor, who apparently is actually an old woman and gets incredibly offended when Rudo mistakenly refers to her as an old man. Once she finishes patching him up, she promptly boots both Rudo and Engine out onto the street. Outdoors, Rudo reluctantly thanks Engine for covering the treatment, clarifying that he's only after information on how he can get home. He firmly tells Engine that he doesn't have time to waste joining his little cleaner club or whatever they call themselves, but Engine just sighs in disappointment, mentioning that he'd hoped Rudo would have learned something about how spherites get treated down here after being kidnapped. He warns Rudo that if anyone else figures out he's from the sphere, he'll regret ever being born, and besides, information in this hellhole doesn't come free. With that, Engine leads him into a desolate dystopian city, yet despite its grim appearance, it's still miles better than the disgusting wasteland outside. Engine even buys him a burger and Rudo devours it without holding back, especially since he threw up all the garbage ingested earlier. He had always imagined the bottom of the pit as nothing but heaps of trash. Yet here there are actual cities bustling with people trying to survive. As he's eating, Rudo notices a girl walk into the store and can't help but stare, but before he gets lost in thought, Engine decides to educate him on how things work down here. He explains that garbage isn't the only thing accumulating at the bottom. Emotions also gather here, eventually manifesting into an energy called anima. Those trash beasts Rudo saw earlier are one manifestation of anima, and though they generally stick close to the garbage heaps, occasionally they wander into the cities, wreaking havoc. Enjun goes on, saying ordinary weapons can't even scratch the surface of these monsters, because their cores are made entirely of concentrated anima, but Rudo's gloves have the unique power to destroy them. Rudo is stunned by this revelation, and Enjun explains that when something gets cherished for a long time, it accumulates anima too, turning into what's called a vital instrument. Vital instruments have the power to destroy a trash beast's core, but not everyone can tap into that hidden energy. Enjun reveals that people who can channel that power are called givers, and the cleaners are their group, which is full of these givers who wipe out trash monsters. Rudo then bluntly asks Enjun if he'll promise to show him how to return to the sphere if he joins the cleaners, but Enjun casually admits he doesn't have the slightest clue. Rudo immediately snaps at him for misleading him, but Enjun calmly reminds Rudo that he never said he knew how to get him back. Yet Enjun assures him that their boss is extremely wise and might know a way home. Rudo is pissed because now he's stuck needing to meet Enjun's boss before deciding anything, but then Enjun suddenly asks about his gloves. Rudo hesitantly reveals that his father gave them to him, and they're the only keepsake he has left of him. Enjun finally understands why he cares so deeply about those raggedy old gloves and sincerely tells Rudo to take good care of them, because they got a powerful soul residing inside. Rudo feels a wave of emotion, remembering how everyone else always ridiculed him about his gloves. But before the moment sinks in, Enjun gets a message and says he has to meet up with a coworker. As Enjun starts to leave, Rudo quickly stands up and awkwardly thanks him for everything he's done. In response, Enjun casually tosses a pouch of money toward him, warning him to be careful how he spends it. Rudo can't believe Enjun is just giving him cash after everything else he's done for him, but Enjun brushes it off, explaining it's no big deal because he just sold Rudo's sphere clothes for the money. That's how he could afford his medical treatment and food, so Rudo doesn't even need to thank him. Rudo completely loses his shit upon hearing this, but Enjun just shrugs and says that Rudo couldn't have walked around the city dressed in sphere gear anyway. Enjun then announces he's off to see his trainer and instructs Rudo to stay put and wait patiently. Rudo is still fuming over Enjun's carefree attitude when suddenly he sees a sneaky cat grabbing his money pouch and darting away. He immediately bolts after the thief, but the cat easily outruns him. Fortunately, he notices a crescent moon-shaped stick lying on the street and grabs it without hesitation, using it to skillfully stop the cat in its tracks. Just as he finally pins the cat down, the staff's owner suddenly appears, furious at Rudo for trying to swipe his precious stick. Rudo gets baffled and asks what's so special about this dumb piece of wood anyway, which only makes the guy even more enraged. He quickly snatches back his staff and shoves Rudo aside, warning him that he's about to pay for his crimes. But before anything else, the guy gets a bit too intimate with his stick, leaving Rudo utterly confused. At that moment, Rudo spots the cleaner emblem, the same one from Enjun's umbrella, and realizes that this guy is also part of the cleaners. The man then activates the hidden power of his staff, turning it into a legit weapon, and takes a swing at Rudo. Thankfully, he intentionally misses since Enjun already filled him in about Rudo earlier. Calming down, he introduces himself as Zanka, explaining that Enjun asked him to handle Rudo's training. He sighs, saying he never expected he'd have to teach a brat basic manners like not stealing other people's stuff, but Rudo defensively explains that he was just borrowing the stick to get his cash back from the cat. Zanka remarks that Rudo's dad probably didn't raise him right, and that immediately pushes Rudo's buttons, because insulting Recto is the one thing he can't tolerate. Yet, as anger boils inside him, Rudo suddenly recalls something Recto once told him. If you really want someone to hear you out, step back first and try seeing things from their perspective. Taking a deep breath, Rudo admits to himself that Zanka has every right to be mad. After all, he took his precious treasure without asking. He imagines how he'd feel if someone took his gloves even accidentally, realizing it really was his own fault. So swallowing his pride, he sincerely apologizes to Zanka. The guy immediately chills out too, quickly reassuring Rudo that it's no big deal since he got his staff back, and admits he should have reacted more calmly himself. Honestly, Rudo is completely floored by how fast Zanka's personality flipped. Plus, this was the first time he'd ever managed to defuse a tense situation just by talking. He can't help thinking Recto might have actually been right about more stuff than he realized. Zanka then helps him stand up and casually asks about his vital instrument, wondering what kind of ability it has. Rudo replies that his gloves are probably his vital instrument, but confesses he doesn't really know what kind of power they've got yet. Zanka carefully checks out Rudo's gloves and genuinely compliments them, saying they're actually pretty badass. But Rudo is still hung up on how wildly different Zanka suddenly seems. It hits him that maybe it's because he's smiling now, recalling that Recto always told him smiling is key to making friends. But unluckily, smiling isn't exactly in Rudo's skill set, and frankly, he'd probably need a plastic surgeon just to teach him how to properly flex those facial muscles. Even more unluckily, Rudo doesn't know this, so he bravely attempts his best imitation of a human smile, but instead he delivers possibly the most horrifying expression Zanka has ever witnessed on a human face. Zanka immediately snaps again, demanding to know what the hell kind of face Rudo's trying to pull. He angrily asks if he's mocking him with that freakish look, and Rudo defensively questions why Zanka's mad this time, insisting that this was literally the best smile he had in him. Zanka replies that even someone blindfolded would know that abomination wasn't a smile, prompting Rudo to close his eyes and lips this time, hoping it'll look more natural. His expression is marginally less terrifying, but it's nowhere near enough to stop Zanka from being annoyed. Zanka thinks that Rudo must be feeling cocky after Engine called him a genius, so now he's blatantly mocking him. He warns Rudo that he'll never achieve his goals if he keeps acting like a clown. That was exactly the line he shouldn't have crossed. Suddenly, Rudo's mind flashes to his goal of returning to the sphere and fulfilling Recto's final wishes, so he firmly tells Zanka that he's dead serious about all of it. He demands Zanka stop insulting him, prompting Zanka to whip out his weapon again, stating bluntly that they're probably not gonna get along after all. Rudo completely agrees, grabbing a random metal rod from a nearby trash bin and instantly awakening its hidden power. Zanka's jaw nearly drops, seeing Rudo casually turn some random piece of junk into a vital instrument, finally understanding why Engine was raving about him being a genius. However, Zanka is still confident that someone with just raw talent won't be able to take down even an average guy like him, who's busted his ass to reach this point. Rudo doesn't even realize that Zanka's trash talk was a distraction until the staff suddenly crashes down inches in front of him, forcing him to dodge frantically. Zanka immediately charges, relentlessly chasing Rudo, until he finally pins him to the ground, satisfied with his victory. But then Zanka feels something weird on his face. He swipes it off and out of sheer curiosity sniffs it, only to discover to his absolute horror that it's literal shit. He freaks out upon realizing that the metal rod Rudo randomly grabbed was actually the handle of a damn toilet plunger. Zanka frantically tries to explain what the hell a plunger even is, but Rudo isn't in the mood for explanations. Instead, he wildly swings around his newly awakened plunger, still dripping with someone's unfortunate leftovers. Zanka absolutely loses his mind, frantically dodging flying shit like it's a live grenade, and soon enough, he's sprinting away from Rudo at full speed. Rudo has no clue why Zanka is suddenly terrified, but he figures he might as well roll with it, gleefully chasing him down while swinging his plunger weapon around. After several frantic minutes spent zigzagging through random alleyways like a damn episode of Tom and Jerry, Zanka finally makes it to the main street, still pursued closely by Rudo. Just then, a random cat darts in front of Zanka, causing him to stumble and lose his balance, giving Rudo the perfect chance to catch up. Rudo leaps high into the air, swinging his plunger with every ounce of strength he has as the terrified Zanka watches in slow-motion horror. He gets completely blasted by a relentless barrage of airborne poop, knocking him clean out. A little while later, Engine shows up to see how they're doing. When he casually asks Rudo if he's already met his new teacher, Rudo simply points towards Zanka, who's currently lying unconscious atop a garbage pile, twitching and spasming like he's been possessed. Engine helps Zanka get cleaned up and gives him a lift, but he can't help but laugh hysterically about how Zanka got totally owned by literal crap. Meanwhile, Rudo is quietly traumatized upon realizing the truth about the weapon he'd been enthusiastically swinging through the streets. Engine then casually mentions to Rudo that Zanka's a spoiled brat who's never had anyone handle him quite like this before. Rudo can only silently stare at the thoroughly mortified Zanka, but suddenly he notices a random pair of boots in the backseat. Engine then turns to Rudo and says that while their first meeting wasn't exactly ideal, Zanka is still going to be his trainer moving forward. He praises Zanka, saying he's actually the best instructor they have when it comes to mastering vital instruments. Zanka clearly values Engine's words immensely, because despite being utterly humiliated moments ago, he can't help but giggle with joy upon hearing the praise. Right then, Engine addresses a woman named Rio sitting in the back, casually asking when exactly she climbed into the car. She wakes up gracefully from her beauty sleep and replies that she got curious about the new recruit. Rudo just stares in awe at her because she's drop-dead gorgeous, and suddenly, Rio reaches out to gently play with his hair, fascinated by its unique color and texture. Rudo feels like he's accidentally stumbled into paradise, completely mesmerized by the attention of a hot girl toward him. While he's lost in his dirty, dreamy thoughts, Engine smoothly drives out of the city, heading toward the cleaner's headquarters, nestled deep in the wild outskirts. Soon after, Engine cruises past some ruined cities and drives through a heavily fortified tunnel cut straight into a massive rock wall. On the other side, everyone hops out of the car and Engine casually welcomes Rudo to the cleaner's headquarters. Rudo's still zoned out from Rio, awkwardly playing with his hair earlier, but as he heads towards the building, a few annoying flies start buzzing circles around him. Inside, a hot black receptionist sits calmly flipping through an adult magazine without a care in the world. Engine introduces her to Rudo as Simu, explaining she's responsible for checking out all the new recruits. But just as she's about to demonstrate her skills, she suddenly lunges forward with a fork, effortlessly skewering the two flies buzzing near Rudo's head. Rudo stands there stunned, mouth hanging open, as Simu casually greets him. She says Engine filled her in on all the details, but she still needs to give him a personal once-over to gauge his potential. As Simu starts focusing deeply through her glasses, Engine explains they're her vital instrument, and they amplify her vision, letting her literally see what people are made of. Rudo's surprised by this revelation, but doesn't have time to process it because Simu activates her power, peering into his hidden potential. What she sees shocks her enough to quickly deactivate the ability. Engine then asks if everything's alright, and Simu brushes it off, simply saying Rudo's athletic enough already, and that he has a decent bond with his vital instrument, though he'll definitely need some practice using it. Engine senses she's holding something back, and Simu casually admits there's some poop on the back of Rudo's neck. That shit makes Engine burst out laughing, leaving Rudo utterly embarrassed. But then as he walks Rudo away to meet the boss, he throws one more glance back at Simu, knowing full well she's hiding something important. As they head deeper into the facility, Engine fills Rudo in on the cleaners. They've got about 100 members in total, including fighters, guards, and support personnel. Most are scattered around on missions, so not many are actually present at headquarters. Engine assures Rudo he'll eventually meet everyone, but as he opens the common room door, he sees a whole crowd of cleaners gathered, and they look like a bunch of psychos. So he awkwardly slams the door shut again, deciding introductions can definitely wait. Finally, they arrive at the boss's office, but before entering, Engine advises Rudo not to immediately ask how to return to the sphere, and he suggests offering his services as a cleaner first to gain favor. Engine also warns him not to mention anything about the boss's vital instrument, as nobody knows what it actually is or what it does. Naturally, Rudo's curiosity spikes, but when they enter the room, it's completely empty. Right then, Simu pops in and tells them the boss is away on a mission and won't return for a few days. Rudo's confused by this, but Engine casually explains it's pretty normal around here and he'll just have to wait. That makes Rudo fuming, and he wonders what the hell he's supposed to do in the meantime, when Rio suddenly shows up, smiling and inviting him to tag along with her instead. She clarifies that he can't officially become a cleaner until the boss approves him, so for now he can just tag along as her trainee, an arrangement she's happy with since she wants to get to know him better. Rudo's brain momentarily short-circuits because he's never had this kind of female attention in his entire sad life, and without a word, he obediently follows her like a good boy. They head straight to the strategy room, where Simu briefs everyone that a small town near a polluted zone has urgently requested help after spotting small trash beasts nearby. Rudo is puzzled, asking what exactly these polluted zones are, causing Simu to realize Engine didn't even bother explaining the basics to him. She sighs and gives Rudo a quick rundown. The land is divided into safe zones where humans can survive normally, and garbage-infested polluted zones home to the dangerous trash beasts. She adds that the place Rudo first landed was a no-man's land, an especially toxic polluted zone where stepping foot usually means instant death for most people. Simu then tosses Rudo a mask, sternly telling him he absolutely needs to keep it on whenever he's in the polluted zones. Without it, he'd choke on poisonous gases and drop dead in under 15 minutes. A little later, Rudo joins Rio and her team for the mission, with Rio firmly reminding him to stick close so he can learn properly. Still feeling uneasy about everything, Rudo starts panicking internally, wondering just how long he'd been breathing in poison back in the no-man's land. But his anxiety quickly fades when he lays eyes on the gigantic garbage dump in front of them, instantly shifting into scavenger mode. He briefly wonders if anyone back up in the sphere even knows that humans live at the bottom of the pit, but honestly, he couldn't care less. To him, this garbage heap is a freaking gold mine where he can scavenge freely and fix things without getting scolded or beaten half to death. Snapping out of his trance, Rudo quickly catches up to Rio, asking about the other guys tagging along with them. She explains they're supporters, and though they don't have flashy special powers like the combatants, they're still incredibly valuable during assignments. Then one of the supporters cheerfully extends his hand for a handshake, and as soon as Rudo nervously accepts, the guy crushes his hand with bone-breaking strength. Rio burst out laughing at Rudo's suffering, explaining that this crazy dude's got a grip so strong he can rip apart a trash beast's shell bare-handed. At this point, Rudo seriously wonders if he can handle any more of this psycho crew. Suddenly, another supporter shouts a warning that the trash beasts are incoming, and Rudo snaps to attention, determined to learn everything he can. Moments later, a swarm of small, goat-like trash beasts shuffles out of the creepy garbage forest, causing Rudo to panic immediately. He turns to Rio, frantically asking how they're supposed to handle so many monsters. She calmly tells him to chill the hell out because they're just weak, pathetic trash beasts that can't even dent the wooden fence. Sure enough, the goat beasts hopelessly bash against the fence without doing a lick of damage. But just as Rudo starts calming down, a second wave appears, but this one is much larger and nastier. The bigger beasts charge the fence, quickly starting to break through, and Rudo panics again, desperately asking Rio what they're gonna do now. Rio remains annoyingly calm, insisting these beasts are still weak enough to be perfect practice for a newbie, and she confidently adds that they'll clean up this mess quickly and head back to base afterward to throw a big welcome party for Rudo. Rudo can't believe how insanely chill Rio is about risking her life every day against literal monsters, but she bluntly tells him that if he wants to survive up here, he better get a positive outlook real fast. Suddenly it clicks in Rudo's mind that Enjin's just the same, and maybe that carefree attitude is exactly what he's been missing this whole time. So he decides right then he'll try to relax a little more. Just as Rudo starts feeling optimistic, an enormous trash beast smashes through the barricade, and even Rio visibly panics at its sheer size. Rudo desperately looks to her for reassurance that everything's still okay, but instead of fear, Rio's eyes sparkle with excitement. She exclaims how incredibly stylish the massive beast is, though it's definitely not ideal newbie training material. She's gonna have fun taking it down. She dramatically draws out her scissors, her vital instrument, and Rudo stares at her in utter disbelief. Rio casually activates the scissors and flings them into the sky, where they transform into massive, razor-sharp blades. She catches them effortlessly with her leg, then charges straight into the horde of monsters, effortlessly slicing through several beasts in one smooth kick. Rudo can't even comprehend what's happening anymore, and the support guy casually explains that Rio's vital instrument is called the Ripper, and unlike normal folks, she wields those giant scissors using her feet. So Rudo recognizes that everyone has their own unique style when using their vital instruments. Just then, Handshake Guy shouts at Rudo to keep his damn guard up. Rudo notices too late that a level 2 trash beast is charging straight at him, but thankfully, the supporter intercepts it, effortlessly crushing its skull bare-handed before chucking the corpse to Rio, who slices it cleanly mid-air. Laughing, Rio shouts for them to toss her more beasts, and the supporters happily oblige, yeeting heavy trash beasts at her like they're tossing baseballs. By the time Rudo finally wraps his head around this madness, realizing this insane teamwork is how cleaners roll, Rio's already wiped out all the small fry, leaving only the boss monster. The supporters immediately split up, quickly disabling any leftover beasts that might interfere with Rio's fight. But Rudo suddenly spots a supposedly downed beast waking up, attacking one of the supporters. Without hesitation, Rudo rushes forward, determined to prove his worth so he can finally get the info he desperately needs. He tries to transform the iron pipe he's holding into a weapon, but instead, it morphs into a spiked barricade. Rudo panics, realizing he's forgotten exactly how to control his power since he's only been using it on pure instinct. He struggles to hold the beast back as it pushes down on him, but luckily, Rio appears out of nowhere, effortlessly slicing the trash beast apart. She praises Rudo for following his instincts to protect his teammate, reassuring him he did well. The supporter he saved also thanks him, asking Rio if she finished off the boss. Rio admits she already split the big bastard clean in half, but somehow it's still standing. She's puzzled how it survived since she clearly hit its core, but since it refuses to die, she decides she'll just slice it into tiny, harmless pieces instead. The supporters quickly agree to record data on this new type of trash beast that's somehow resistant to vital instruments, then rush off to warn the nearby towns. Meanwhile, Rio charges at the giant beast, leaving Rudo standing there clueless, wondering why nobody ever tells him what to freaking do. Rio swiftly leaps onto the monster's face, hopping up to its head and effortlessly slicing off all the pipes sticking out, leaving the poor thing bald as an egg. After giving the monster an unwanted haircut, she notices a strange glow beneath her feet and realizes it must be the monster's core, which it desperately tried to hide. But before she can stab it, the trash beast goes berserk, violently shaking enough to toss her aside, reattaching the pipes to its head and furiously slamming its jaw into the ground. Rio somehow clings on, but then the beast suddenly turns its attack towards Rudo and the supporters. Rudo stands frozen in fear as he sees a barrage of metal pipes heading straight for him. Luckily, the pipes miss him by inches, but the ground beneath him collapses, sending him plummeting. As he falls, despair grips him, and he wonders what the hell he's even doing here. At this rate, he'll never get revenge on those bastards in the sphere or for Recto. Darkness creeps into his mind, but right then, the supporter guy catches him, pulling him back from the brink of hopelessness. He lifts Rudo onto his shoulder, scolding him that if he's got a damn goal, he shouldn't freeze up, he should run straight towards it. He tells Rudo to learn from supporters who don't even have powers but still keep moving forward without whining. Just then, Rudo sees Rio attacking the monster again, and judging by its screams, she's definitely found its weak spot. Rio leaps high above the beast before dropping like a meteor onto its head, piercing it with her scissors and ripping out the core. When she hits the ground and crushes the core beneath her, the trash beast instantly disintegrates into ash. The supporter rushes over, asking her how she killed it. Rio says she stabbed something other than the core and pulls out a small cardboard cutter, claiming this thing was powering the beast. The support guy nearly loses it, realizing that the cutter is a vital instrument and there's absolutely no way a trash beast should have had something like that. Meanwhile, the leader of the bandits who plan on selling Rudo suddenly wakes up groggy in a dimly lit room. Confused, he tries to figure out where the hell he is when suddenly, the shady guy lounging on the sofa across from him asks in a chilling voice for the exact location of the kid from the sphere he'd been muttering about in his nap. Back at the cleaner's base of operations, Rio is hosting the welcome celebration for Rudo, and before long, Zenka drifts in too, yawning after a heavy afternoon snooze. He asks Rio what the fuss is about, and she says they're marking Rudo's first day on the ground, though he's off in a corner, head lowered, keeping to himself. Zenka wants to know why that mouthy brat looks so deflated, and Rio explains he's been down ever since his vital instrument quit on him mid-fight. Zenka says that's rough and pivots to the report about Rio encountering a strange trash beast. She confirms it, saying that rather than an enema core, the creature's heart was a vital instrument, a discovery none of them anticipated and nothing their training covered. Since there was nothing she could do right then, Rio left the issue to the higher ranks and headed back to set up the party. At the same time, Rudo keeps brooding until the support team's chief arrives to speak with him. The man gives his name as Gris and tells Rudo he did well yesterday. Rudo insists he did nothing, but Gris points out that he protected a fellow supporter from a trash beast. Rudo adds that afterward his power would not answer him and Gris and Rio had to pull him out. He is sick of it, because back on the sphere he kept slipping and Recto was always covering for him. Rudo calls himself a complete letdown who will never meet anyone's expectations, but Gris suddenly thanks him, raking that line of thought. Gris says most newcomers in the cleaners treat supporters like nobodies with no real power, but Rudo did not. He brings up Follow, the one Rudo saved. Follow joined to be a combatant, but without a vital instrument, he is serving as a supporter, guarding a cherished item he hopes will become his weapon one day. Gris tells Rudo not to obsess over getting stronger or chasing other people's expectations. He asks what Rudo always wanted, even before everything went wrong on the sphere. Rudo thinks hard, and Gris says if he finds whatever first woke the fire in his soul, he will be able to find his way again. Then he gently pats Rudo's head and tells him to have faith in himself. That simple gesture hits Rudo harder than any words, and his emotions overwhelm him because that warm pat on the head was something his father used to do for him. So tears threaten to spill, but suddenly Engine walks over, drapes an arm across his shoulder, and ruins the emotional mood. He asks why Rudo has not touched his food, and a moment later, Rio and Zenka show up. They all tell him to get back in the mix since he is the guest of honor, and because the spread is disappearing fast. Moved by how much they care, Rudo falls in with them. While they eat, one guy flicks on the music and snatches a handful of spray cans. Then he starts misting the wall of color like Banksy, and Engine tells Rudo to keep an eye on the one named Gob, since he acts on impulse and ignores everyone else. As Gob sketches his mural, the others gripe at him, telling him to hold off until they finish their meals. But as already said, he couldn't care less. Down on the ground floor, the hot Simi returns to her desk, already expecting the phone to ring any second. The instant it buzzes, she picks up and takes a request. Then she calls in Zenka along with a crew of supporters to handle it. Zenka asks why Rudo is even with the squad when he has not been formally accepted into the cleaners. Simiu says the job they just got ties directly to Rudo. She explains it came from a merchant ambushed by a trash beast while crossing a polluted zone. He got out alive, but his valuable cargo was taken and he wants them to put the beast down and recover it. This is where Rudo matters because the cargo is a living spherite. Everyone is stunned, and Simiu notes that seeing two living spherites topside at once is extremely rare, which means something is off, so she wants Rudo to examine it himself. Rudo mulls it over, and Gris tells him to rein in his feelings before he decides. Rudo knows his power is unreliable, and that could weigh the team down. but he still wants to meet the other spherite in case it offers a clue about getting back to the surface. He chooses to go and Zenka is not thrilled, but Simu knows exactly how to win him over. She says the assignment was meant for Engine, but he is tied up on another job right now, and he said he trusts Zenka to take it. That is all it takes to flip the #1 Engine fan, and he cheerfully leads the team into the polluted zone. As they move along, Rudo asks Grizz whether he goes without a weapon, and Grizz replies that he does carry a knife, though he trusts his own hands more. One of the supporters chimes in that Grizz actually keeps a talisman he prays over often, and Grizz reddens, embarrassed that the secret slipped. He decides to show Rudo the charm, saying it is nothing remarkable, but it gives him something to hold on to. Right then, they spot a spooky-looking girl standing behind them. The spooky girl claims she is the merchant who hired them for this job. So Rudo immediately fires questions about the spherite, and the merchant says she was hauling her luggage when she stumbled upon an unconscious spherite. Worried for him, she picked them up to carry them away, but a trash beast attacked and made off with the spherite. Rudo presses the merchant, asking if she intends to sell the spherite, and she rejects the charge, saying she does not want that and is simply very curious about spherites. Zanka thinks the tale reeks like the dump they are heading toward. Trash beasts attack humans on sight, and they do not go out of their way to kidnap one. He decides something is suspicious, but will deal with it when the time comes. The merchant then leads them to the building where the trash beast ran after abducting the spherite. Zanka then tells everyone to stay on guard because the creature could strike from any direction, but when they step inside, the place is bare except for a single figure at the far end. The merchant says that it is the spherite and starts pushing Rudo toward them, and the other cleaners end up shoved along too. Once they get close enough, Rudo realizes it is not a person at all but a doll dressed like a spherite, yet it is already too late as the merchant hops backward, telling him to hurry. The very next moment, the floor beneath Rudo's feet turns to mud, and the whole group plunges to the level below. They ask themselves what just happened, and the merchant asks whether they are all right. They answer that they are fine and ask what this place is and where the spherite is. The merchant gives a creepy laugh and points at Rudo, saying he is the spherite. Then she turns to mud and melts away. Right then, two voices hail the spherite giver, and a pair of violet electric glows glide toward them out of the dark. Zanka pieces it together on the spot, mostly because of those purple crackling lights. He knows the crew behind this are the raiders, and they are not even pretending to hide that they intend to snatch Rudo from the cleaners. Rudo, thrown by this new bunch of oddballs, hears Gris explain they are this world's bandits, and the part that makes them lethal is that all of them are givers too. He orders his squad to carve out an exit, while he and Follow will shield Rudo. He assigns Zanka to deal with the two raiders alone, and though Zanka hesitates, he sees there is no alternative. The supporters bolt the other way at once, and Gris tells Rudo to stick with them. Rudo says he can handle a pack of bandits himself, but Gris warns him not to discount the raiders, especially when they do not know what gifts they carry. Elsewhere, Zanka needles the raiders, saying he always figured they would come for Rudo, though he did not expect them to track him this fast. He asks if they intend to sell him, since a living spherite could fetch enough coin to retire in comfort. The raiders laugh and say they are not planning to sell Rudo. Rather, they are hungry for knowledge about the sphere, and a spherite is the best source they could ask for. They want answers to a lot of things, especially how they crossed the barrier and lived. Zanka is curious about the barrier claim too, but he decides to finish the raiders quickly. He says that since they orchestrated this whole setup, he does not need to worry about a trash beast. The female raider answers that he still needs to worry about the mud dolls she can create whenever she likes, and Zanka says he can swat weak targets like that with his eyes shut. He then snaps his staff to life and starts wiping out the mud dolls, but the male raider blends into the decoys and strikes from behind. And Zanka barely twists in time before the punch slams him hard into the column. Once more, the man ducks into an earthen decoy, and the female raider sneers that cleaners only ever brawl with trash beasts, so they have no clue how to handle people. She tells him this is the last round of Find the Real One he will ever play, and Zanka braces himself and throws in everything he has. He keeps smashing the clay puppets, yet the male raider keeps slipping in and punching him from behind. Zanka is boxed in now, and when he lunges for the female raider to put her down, his feet shoot out on a mud trap she laid beforehand. She says he is the only fighter in the crew who can challenge her, and once he drops, the rest will be helpless. She says his loss is only a matter of time, but Zanka barks that if she wants to keep running her mouth, she should start a podcast. He adds that at first he figured she was steering the mud puppets with that shovel, while the guy used his vital instrument to dish out the damage. And after watching them a bit longer, he realizes that the first raid was off. The man is just throwing punches, and his vital instrument looks like the snowshoes that let him move freely on solid footing. Now the smooth footwork despite all the muck underfoot makes sense, and he jeers at the pair, calling them a perfect little combo. The woman snaps at that and tells him to shut up, which he absolutely does not. He says he may lack experience fighting people, but he understands his own vital instrument far better than they do. That is why he can pull off things they cannot, and she lunges at him. Zanka then slams his staff into the floor, sending a wave of sound rolling through the chamber. He reads the changes in vibration as it ripples through the mud effigies, and the moment it runs through the one hiding the male raider, he pins his location. He bursts forward at full tilt and drops the man with a single hit, then clips the female raider as well. As she blacks out, her creations collapse at once and Zanka mutters they were nothing but rookies. But suddenly, the raider's leader materializes behind him and says he should try someone stronger if he is still unsatisfied. At the same time, Rudo and the support squad reach the egress door at last. Gris swings it open to reveal a stairwell leading up, and he orders the other supporters to head upstairs and call for reinforcements while he stays behind to see if Zanka is alright. A moment later, a figure comes rushing their way, so they assume it's Zanka, thinking he has already finished off the raiders. Instead, it's the enemy boss in the flesh. The boss starts studying Rudo closely with a measuring stare, verifying that the target is indeed him. He then vaults onto the doorway and pulverizes the surrounding masonry, sealing the exit as he identifies Rudo as the Spherite Giver. Gris cautions that Rudo is under the cleaner's protection and crossing him makes you the enemy of all of them. The man shrugs off the warning, saying his atrocious sense of direction is the only reason he arrived late. He adds he never intended to give them this much breathing room and starts strolling toward them. When Gris asks about Zanka's whereabouts, the raider waves him off again and tells Rudo someone wants a word with him. The raider then wrenches off Rudo's mask, pointing out that there aren't any trash monsters here. When Rudo presses about Zanka, he says he went easy on him and only knocked him out, though the poison is probably giving him a rough time. He triggers his vital instrument, the rings on his fingers unfurling into razor claws, and warns Rudo to come quietly. Both supporters dive at him at once to try to hold him down, but he shrugs them off and slams them hard to the floor. As the boss readies his claws again, Gris steps in front of Rudo, swearing to defend his crew at any price. The boss lowers the talons and sneers about the cleaner's so-called weak supporters, claiming they're useless and can't protect a thing. Rudo tells Gris to fall back since Gris is unarmed against the raider and insists he can handle the boss himself. The boss asks Rudo to promise he won't get angry and claims he has already killed Gris with an attack too quick for anyone to see. He then drives those claws more through Gris and declares that wimps like him are utterly useless. As Gris collapses, his lucky charm slips free and tumbles, so Rudo snaps out a hand and grabs it. Rudo's mind snaps back to the day Recto came home and caught him smashing his forehead into the wall like a madman, blood streaming down his face. After laying the little boy down, Recto asked why he'd done that. Rudo answered that Recto had taught him never to hurt other people. Watching the boy turn that rule on himself gave Recto a pounding ache, yet he sat beside him and asked what pushed him this far even after the ache in his hands had faded and he had started keeping away from everyone. Rudo said there was no single trigger, only a hateful knot lodged in his damn head, and even if someone asked, he could not explain it. Hearing that, Recto understood. The boy believed his parents had thrown him away and now thought he is worthless, and a child like him wasn't built to carry feelings that heavy. When Rudo asked what worthless even meant, Recto decided first to patch him up and then take him outside because a big slice of his despair came from having nothing amusing to do. He told Rudo to go explore and try everything, until he found something that truly made him happy. He hyped him up, saying a day would come when that empty room was crammed with things he loved, then made him promise to warn him ahead of time if he ever planned on bringing a girl to the house. They then headed to Backwater Village's library to read for a while, and afterward Recto tried to teach him soccer, but the soft-hearted kid felt sorry for the ball and just patted it. Next they gave cooking a shot. Rudo turned out to be excellent at slicing vegetables, so excellent he cut straight through the cutting board, a total epic fail moment. Recto was simply pleased to see some spark in him, and there was plenty of time to figure out what truly fit. Right then, Rudo spotted a villager tossing junk and asked what the man was doing. The discarded item fascinated him so much that he shoved through the doorway and dove straight into the dumpster. By the time Recto caught up, the boy was sobbing hard and clutching the object, leaving Recto unsure which feeling had grabbed him. Rudo sobbed that it was awful to throw away something with his whole life ahead of it just because it was a little broken. He kept shouting that he wanted to fix it, and Recto realized Rudo wasn't simply projecting his own hurt. He genuinely saw value in things everyone else had already labeled trash. Back to now, Rudo awakens the power sealed inside Gris's lucky charm, and Gris, still clinging to life, finally grasps why he himself could never get it to respond, because until this moment, no one truly understood what the charm was. Rudo's gift that doesn't merely convert stray items into vital instruments. Rather, it draws out their buried, authentic worth. He reshapes the charm into a defensive armament crowned with a single oversized eye, and instead of panicking, the enemy practically salivates at the sight. Fascinated, the raider asks if this is Rudo's own vital instrument, pressing to learn every last detail. Follow then hauls Grizz towards safety and tries to administer quick first aid. Rudo recalls that Grizz is the reason he discovered what he genuinely wants to do. Without that push, he would still be adrift. With that in mind, he plants his feet and prepares to hit the foe hard. The raider boss says he loves strong givers and extends his clawed hands, introducing himself as Jabber Wonger. Jabber chirps that he's here to have some fun and asks Rudo's name. Once the introductions are out of the way, he lights up like a madman, shouting that the two of them should tear each other apart, then he rockets straight at Rudo. On the other side, Follow struggles to prop Grizz up, but the blood won't stop pouring. Watching Rudo fight, Grizz realizes he couldn't act before because his emotions have fogged his purpose, but now nothing is left to distract him. Back in the clash, Jabber springs backward and clings to the wall, taunting Rudo and asking why he isn't advancing. Rudo tells him to come to him instead, and the raider obliges, vaulting over Rudo with a crushing strike. He hits the floor a heartbeat later because Rudo has already slipped out of the way. Jabber follows with a storm of swipes, yet Rudo evades every last one. When Jabber finally demands to know why none of his blows land, Rudo answers that Grizz prayed for everyone returned safe and sound. Safe means unhurt, so he's prioritizing defense to keep every hostile strike from touching him. Jabber scoffs that Rudo's vital instrument looks like it only boosts his ability to evade, and he scoffs that it is worthless if Rudo cannot hit back. Rudo points out the thing Jabber has missed from the start. He hasn't shifted a single step, yet every blow keeps whiffing. The only one racing around is Jabber, which means Rudo is reading every pattern before it happens. When Jabber barrels in again, Rudo triggers his vital instrument and locks him in place. Because the talisman isn't an offensive tool, he follows with a clean, driving punch because fists were Grizz's weapon of choice and Rudo means to honor his buddy. Blood threads from the raider's nose, but he cackles anyway, impressed that Rudo used that ominous device to steer the exchange and finish with bare knuckles. Rudo reminds him he was the one begging for fun, and he's happy to oblige until Jabber is nothing but trash on the floor. The taunt sets Jabber off. He sneers that Rudo must be heartless to feel no guilt about being merciless, and Rudo answers that Jabber alone earns that exception. Jabber then flickers behind him to swing, but Rudo freezes him again and buries a brutal shot in his gut, sending the boss and that eerie grin skidding away. Jabber rebounds fast, ricocheting so quickly that dust veils bloom, making it impossible for Rudo's eyes to track him. He smashes pillars and hurls stone slabs from every direction, finally forcing Rudo to cover his face as Jabber charges for the finish, only for the Lucky Charm's eye to immobilize him once more. Rudo nearly caves his skull in, but Jabber slips free at the final heartbeat. Cackling like a lunatic, he lunges back in, darting even faster than before, but the ever-watchful eye locks him the instant he gets close and Rudo blasts the lunatic away yet again. After that, the madman starts ricocheting so quickly he turns into a blur, while Rudo keeps dodging his swings and pounding him with counters. As Jabber keeps howling, Rudo shuts him up with a final 1-2 that briefly knocks him senseless and sends him staggering back until he thuds into the wall. Seeing him panting like a hound, Rudo tells him to quit already, but Jabber only grins because he hasn't been roughed up this badly in ages, and he figures Rudo did love it too. Rudo recoils at the hideous look, but the man suddenly sobers and lays out a theory. Rudo's vital instrument probably reads an enemy's murderous intent and shifts him out of danger. But he noticed while flinging those stone slabs that things without bloodlust don't trip the mechanism at all. Then, wearing a warped smile, he explains his own vital instrument Mankira, saying the right claw carries a toxin strong enough to paralyze a target until they can barely breathe. Then he suddenly drives that claw deep into his own chest. Rudo stares, baffled, while the madman laughs, savoring the pain. And that's when Jabber explains that if he blacks out from the poison and his body keeps fighting on autopilot, there will be no killing intent for the eye to sense. As he gushes about how thrilling this will be, his consciousness ebbs and Rudo watches in mute horror. As the man's body twitches, his eyes then roll back and the wall behind him blows apart. This was the end of episode 6. Subscribe to not miss the next episode.